I do think the DC universe is sentient. He's actually said that. He goes, I believe it is its own living thing. And I'm like, that is you, Grant Morrison. God bless you.
I love it. That's so
but,
cool.
At the end of this, I could get a knock on the door open. Hi, I'm the DC universe. Oh, my God. I mean, literally, I've got like some chips, but I don't have much to give you. I got like...
So, here we are, episode number 10, the last show of the year.
Merry Christmas!
Yeah, or something like that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I had one. There was a Christmas.
It's
one of my favorite specials. I watch it every year.
There was a Christmas.
No, it's the end of 2022. This has been a fun adventure. We plan to keep it going, right, Chad? Let's keep talking about stuff.
I'm down.
Yeah, I did get the cease and desist from James Gunn. He did say, stop talking about me, even though you seem fairly positive about my changes to the DCU. And I was like, all right, man. All right.
Whatever, dude.
Whatever, dude, what was my response.
So you say that there hasn't been much. He's been kind of quiet over this past week, as he should be. I mean, it's the
holidays.
Yeah.
Come on.
But he did respond to this is kind of funny, by CBR, was it Comic Book Resources, I think? They posted a story saying, oh, it looks like they're shutting down the Green Lantern show on HBO Max. And he just replied to it saying, fake. And they went, sorry, Mr. Gunn. And they deleted the tweet.
Sorry, Mr. Gunn. Absolutely, Mr. Gunn. We're very sorry, Mr. Gunn.
Again, being a little bit vague as to,
that's been the common thing now. And I mean, but we don't I mean, we do want to know all that stuff. At the same time, do we expect them just to keep the entire world abreast of every change that happens? It's like, You'll see when we get there. Okay, everybody, you'll see when we get there.
Yeah. I mean, he really doesn't have to say anything at this point. I think he's just having fun. It seems like he's having fun toying with people.
I bet there's fun, and there's a lot of him going, Jesus.
Yeah.
Every day him sitting at his desk just going like, all right, let's look at this. Oh, God. Oh, look at all the Twitter responses. Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't envy him the gig. I do. But at the same time, having to deal with fan anticipation, fan dream stuff. And it's just like, how can you please everybody? And he won't. He just won't.
No.
I still see. And I mean, yes, our point of view is very well stated over the last 10 episodes. But when I look on there and there's still people going like, this is what we could have had, like on Twitter. And there's like some shot from one of the Snyder movies, and they're like going, this is what we're gonna get. And it's like something wacky from Suicide Squad, and they're like going, it's like Polka Dot Man. They're like going, great, this is who we have now. Like, okay, all right, guys, everybody, how's everybody doing? Everyone calm? Everyone good?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, whatever. The other thing he said too was, somebody asked him, of all the people who must be tweeting at him now, he replies to this one. Somebody asked him, have you seen Doom Patrol? And if so, did you like it? And he just said, yes. Not yes and yes. Or no and yes and no, just yes.
Oh.
So yes to both, or yes to one?
I would assume yes to both. I mean, I can only... I guess
he couldn't like it and not have seen it. So.
I certainly don't know. I like it. Haven't seen it yet. Right. I can only assume, based on, our deep knowledge of the man, that it just seems that Doom Patrol would be totally... He gets it. And, plus, you can't really fault it for leaning so hard on the successful run of the comics. It's very close to what the I won't say classic Doom Patrol, because classic Doom Patrol is Silver Age and all that craziness, but that's a show that totally just said, oh, we're just going to do that run. We're going to do Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol. So let's get as close as we can with the budget we have.
Yeah. Which brings me that one of our viewers asked if we
one of our viewers.
Yeah.
You fool!
Asked us if we thought that the Grant Morrison Superman and Batman stories would be good.
I saw that.
Specifically Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, I saw that. And I also read your reply. I'm really glad you're running the social media aspect of this because I just,
Yeah.
But no, your response was an enthusiastic yes. Do I love Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum and All-Star Superman? Dude, All-Star Superman is one of the best Superman things that will ever be. I will say because you said yes to Arkham Asylum, I don't.
Oh, really?
For one specific reason.
Okay.
Nothing happens in it.
Okay.
In other words, it's a great character study, but all that happens in it is Batman shows up at Arkham Asylum because the Joker's taken it over. And along the way, as he wanders through, he's dealing with all those classic Batman villains who are incarcerated there. And it's like a little study of each one. And then it ends with him, beating the Joker again as the Joker torments him and there was the big scandalous, is he doing like a gay come on to Batman? Oh no. And all kinds of stuff. I love Arkham Asylum, but there's not a plot there. You could tack on action sequences and so forth. But there's like, he meets with Killer Croc. He kind of bests Killer Croc, but it's not really, there's no plot.
Yeah.
Still love it. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. So I could see him taking maybe the premise of it and maybe developing in a different direction. So
you could.
That's usually what they do with these films.
Yes. Because the structure is a locked door. It's not a locked door mystery. There's no mystery to it, but it is Die Hardish, as in one person against an entire building full of his enemies. So you could do this very contained Batman story where he's in Arkham Asylum and has to run a gauntlet. That's you putting the action movie, structure onto something that he did and use a lot of his characterizations because it was so well written. I mean, it's that stuff just is great. Mm-hmm. He nails all the Maxie Zeus. I'm like, Maxie Zeus? We haven't seen him on film, but he's in the Arkham Asylum and he gets an interesting little bit. Obviously, Two-Face. I want to see a Batman movie that has like the Rogues Gallery in it. It's instead of just like, oh, well, I dealt with the Joker this time, and this time I'm dealing with the Riddler. I do think they all need a proper introduction, but Arkham Asylum could be it if you did it that way.
I mean, I was, again, thinking about the Suicide Squad and how he introduced, it basically was a Rogues Gallery. It wasn't all of Batman's people, but still he said, here's a whole bunch of crazy characters.
Yeah.
Boom, all at once in one movie. And
some are redeemable, some are... I know.
I'm going to kill half of them, by the way.
He is very good about using social media and also about using PR from the studio, because I remember when the Suicide Squad's being, is coming out, the tease was just about how huge that cast was. And they did the poster that was every one of the characters that was like in little like squares, and he's just like going and the whole idea is like, don't get too attached. His whole thing's like, they're not all gonna make it out of this movie. And it was a great, but that is, he again zeroed in on the great gimmick of the Suicide Squad, because not the original comic, again, the 60s version is nothing like what we know from the 80s of Suicide Squad. But as far as the idea, the very first issue of Suicide Squad was, it's like, for these guys, it's a matter of life and death or whatever. It's like, not all these guys are making it out of this comic. Similar deal. It's like, take all these, because, for every great superhero in DC or Marvel, they have 85 lame ass villains because they have to make up so many more villains for the good guys. So it's like, hey, we have a clearinghouse of all these characters that no one cares about. Let's get rid of Kite Man. Of course, now Kite Man has been made part of the Harley and Harley Quinn animated series. But in other words, there are all these wacky bad guys that they can just go, great, they get signed up to the Suicide Squad, and if they make it out of the mission, great, but we can also blow their head off if we want to. So I loved the way he did that movie where he introduces you to a whole team. They all get wiped out. It's like the Javelin loses his Javelin and he gifts it to Harley Quinn and she uses it for the whole rest of the movie. I'm like, it's great. I love it. It's great. And he kept Rick Flag and kept going, of all the characters, he's the boring guy, but he's the leader guy. And I love Rick Flag. One of the only carryover characters from the classic 1960 Suicide Squad, which I had a trade that they put out a trade of those, by the way, the original Suicide Squad comics from the 60s when the movie came out, just because I figured people will buy it because of the name. Not only, of course, is the storyline totally not like villains being hired or forced into service, it's just these four adventurers. It's one of those 60s comics like Challenges of the Unknown. It was one of the most boring things I've ever read in my life. And I love Silver Age, but I was like, I think when, was it John Ostrander is the guy who came up with the new take, which was the idea of Amanda Waller and Belle Reve Prison and all the supervillains. I'm like, that's a brilliant thing. That's where they just like, we like the name. We're not keeping anything else. All right, we'll include Rick Flag for the old folks. Like going, I remember this nice gentleman, Rick Flag. He was the leader of Suicide Squad. He was boring, and then they did something with him. Anyway, so yes, I think that guy again. I trust him. And as far as All-Star Superman, I would also say to our viewer, no.
Yeah, well, he dies in it, right? That's
yes. I mean, I don't mind
like
that.
A sunset story.
A sunset story. I love that kind of stuff. The problem is that All-Star Superman, over the course of its 12 issues, it incorporates so much obscurity because Grant Morrison's like, I want to get into all of it. I want to pull in weird Silver Age ideas like the 12 labors of Superman, and where he's like meeting Samson and Atlas, and it's Grant Morrison's take on it. And every issue is so confusing, I would think, to those who are not diehard Superman fans, that it is just so wacky. I think, again, there's so many good storylines in All-Star Superman that you could take one of those issues and you could turn it into a movie. Yeah.
That's what I mean. I think, and I did a little research, and it doesn't surprise me. They actually know each other. That Grant Morrison and James Gunn have hung out.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's really some great footage of, there was, one of these conferences that was actually called Morrison Con or something they had in Grant's
he
honor.
has his own con. It's true.
Yeah, which is great. So he and James Gunn was there this was a few years ago. And I found an article where the two of them are talking. It's an article that somebody else put together, just basically a transcript of the two of them talking about stuff. And they're laughing about.
And most of it was in the transcript was James Gunn going, could you give me that again? I'm sorry, your accent. What were you saying? Something about a goat?
No, they're really thick.
I'm not exactly sure what you're.
They were hearkening back to one of the Morrison Con that James participated in. I don't know if it was more than one, but they're sitting in this panel, and James got into this good-spirited, good-natured argument with Max Landis. Is that his name? The guy who directed Chronicle. And Max is going off, and this was it was either James or Grant in this interview referred back to him as Max being very pedantic, because Max had a problem with, no, it's not a superhero story. And James Gunn was like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's not that. It's just a word. Why are you so hung up on this word? But it's very, very entertaining. And they hug each other at one point. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. And,
well, that's really sweet considering that Max Landis turned out to be a big piece of human.
Oh, really? I don't know. What's the story with him?
A lot of, a bunch of sexual harassment. Yeah.
Oh no.
Claims.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Pretty awful. That said, I liked Chronicle a lot.
I didn't see
before it. Oh really? You've never seen it? I do recommend it. It is a good Superman. It is a good superhero story, a plain clothes superhero story, but it's really good. the problem is that apparently he is a privileged son of, John Landis, and apparently he's a terrible person. Before I knew all that, like after I saw a Chronicle, I did look him up, and I don't know why he'd be so skittish about calling it that, because the man's a huge comic nerd, I used to watch his YouTube videos where Max Landis would explain the death and return of Superman. Like, he did a YouTube video, which is him, for the layman, breaking down the whole story of the death of Superman and the return of Superman. And he had, because he knows all these famous actors, he had famous actors acting it out, but with like beach towels around their throats for capes and stuff, and just shooting it in the backyard as if they're like 8-year-olds. But he's like going, and then Doomsday is like, rah, and they have a guy going, rah, and that kind of stuff was fun. I was like, I like this guy. And then I'm like, oh, I can't like you. But
all right.
Yeah, that's I'm fine. Sorry. But I mean, yeah, I say if you can watch it without supporting him by giving him any money.
Yeah.
It is a good superhero movie. But yeah, that's would be an interesting panel though. And I would because Grant Morrison, for all of his freaky, he's not the mystic wizard that Alan Moore is, but he's
or Neil Gaiman, right?
Yeah, he's very much a Carlos Castaneda. Like, I've taken so much peyote and I'm flying. So but he shares with, like a James Gunn, a nerdy, deep, abiding love. And for a long time, Alan Moore had the same thing, but he is soured on the entire experience.
Yeah.
But where you read a Grant Morrison comic, whether it's his Batman stuff or his current, Green Lantern stuff, it's just, he doesn't need any of them to tell him anything. He doesn't have to ask them, like, what's the name of that one guy that's shaped like a diamond? And they go, oh, that's blah, blah. No, he already knows. And he just loves it. All-Star Superman is the biggest love letter. And I would shake his hand just for that, because it's amazing.
I just think it'd be really cool if the two of them collaborated on something for film.
Yeah. I mean, it would be.
Like I said in that comment, I think they're uniquely suited for each other, and that just because of Grant's affinity for the wacky stuff that he brings in and gives it, he treats it with respect, the same way, the similar way that James does anyway. So I think that would be really cool.
I do too. And one thing I think Gunn would be smart enough by, and I hear rumors that Feige does something similar. They're just smart people that realize, okay, maybe we won't hire the actual comics writers to write the scripts. Let's keep Hollywood. But as far as, consulting, I mean, I have a feeling that Gunn would totally be the guy who says, nobody knows this character better than this person, and I want to talk to them about their view on this thing. I would pay Grant Morrison for a consult. It's like, just come in and let's talk about spitball what we can do, not your craziest ideas, because Grant Morrison's craziest ideas are just like, and then the entire universe is sentient and it starts talking to Kal-El, and he's like, oh, okay. Well, that is his thing. He's like I honestly feel that enough people have put thought and love and energy into it over the, almost century it's been around. He goes, I do think the DC universe is sentient. And he's actually said that. He goes, I believe it is its own living thing. And I'm like, that is you, Grant Morrison. God bless you.
I love it. That's so cool.
But, at the end of this, I could get a knock on the door open. Hi, I'm the DC universe. Oh my God. I mean, literally, I've got like some chips, but I don't have much to give you. I got like, you're welcome to come in. This is like a studio, so there's not a lot of room. You can have a seat over there. We'll chat. Chad, if the DC universe does show up at your place, will you let me know?
I will. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. But one of the cool things in that I hadn't heard of this title before. That was called We Three.
We Three, man. that's going to make you cry. Don't read it. It's going to make you
well,
cry.
Grant says that he was crying while he was writing it. And James also reveals that somebody had approached him about actually developing it into a film. This is a while ago now. And Grant goes, "Oh, you should, man. That'd be great." So I'd love to. And they move on to something else. But again, that you see James has an affinity for animal characters. We talked about the possibility of him doing Captain Carrot in the last episode.
Right. It'd be the most gripping Captain Carrot you've ever seen, and maybe someone would die.
Right.
No, right. Alley Cat Dabra.
Yeah. Did you see, this was I hadn't seen this before when I was looking to see, find other people talking about Captain Carrot, where there isn't a lot of people on YouTube talking about him, but there is a robot chicken skit. Of course, there's a robot chicken skit for everything now.
Sure.
Where Superman and Green Lantern and Batman go to Earthsea to attend Captain Carrot's funeral. and there's some other members of his team are there, and they're all very sad. And Superman's like, "Look, I know this is strange, guys, but just hang with me here. We got to take their respects to Captain Carrot." And Green Lantern can't keep his shit together. He keeps laughing he sees the animals. He starts cracking up. Superman's like, "You're being so disrespectful." It's
like the famous Chuckles the Clown episode of Mary Tyler Moore, where it's all very extremely sad, but she just can't help it because it's Chuckles the Clown's funeral and she's cracking up.
Yeah, right.
No, I get it. That would be interesting. I think that some of those 80s things, they're not forgotten, and they have brought, I think, during the Convergence crossover, which was the death of New 52, thank God, right before Rebirth. I think that Convergence was their excuse to, let's just bring obscure stuff back. And I think Captain Carrot made an appeance there, at one point. But it is, and of course, when Morrison did Multiversity, Multiversity, by the way, recommended, which was just his I'm going to name all 52 of the DC universe multiverses. And Earthsea is represented, and every Earth you could think of, alternate versions. It's a lot of fun, and the storyline's crazy, and it's very Grant Morrison. But so, things like Amazing Man. Do you remember Amazing Man from DC in the 80s?
No.
Which was like a sweet sitcom superhero comic. Amazing Man is a basically ex-lunatic asylum guy, but he's very sweet and he's very short, like almost like a little person, but he wears this costume. He has no powers, and it's just him hanging out with like a normal suburban couple, and they're like, "Amazing Man, come on, dude." And it was adorable. It was great. There was a talking dog in it, all kind of stuff. So it was almost like a comic strip, but it would occasionally get serious. Ambush Bug's still around, and that was a crazy 80s DC thing. He was the pre-Deadpool, because he was the DC character that knew he was in a comic, and he would address the reader and look out of the panel and do stuff like that. And he would cross over with, Superman and stuff, and he would say non sequitur weird things, and Superman would be like, okay, whatever. Yeah, okay, Ambush Bug. Because DC in the 80s really was not just trying to copy the Frank Miller stuff. I will say that they gave some very wacky and odd ideas a chance, and I wish they would kind of do stuff like that again, be a little more daring, like have comedy books, have funny animal books, all kinds of stuff. I'm basically telling them what to do now. Again, that's probably why they're going to knock on the door.
Yeah.
But We 3 is it's like The Incredible Journey, or one of those animal movies where 3 unlikely animals team up, only you add in horrible military experiments, but they are sentient, and you're reading their thoughts, and there's sacrifice and nobility. And it really, since it's one contained story, it could be a film. It is beginning to end. There's no second issue, and it gets you right there, man. By the end, you're just like, I love you guys.
Yeah. It makes me think of, I'm trying to remember the name of the author who wrote Watership Down. Dogs.
Adams, right? Richard Adams.
I know my mother read those books when I was a kid. I remember being kind of fascinated with them, but I remember seeing the cartoon version of Watership Down. And that's also, Plague Dogs was about a similar sounding story of these two. I can't remember how many main characters, but they've escaped, I think, a research lab I can't remember where they. It's a really sad story. I remember my mom reading that book and crying.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of
There's
similar
also,
to me, but yeah.
you know who Brian K. Vaughan is? He's the guy who created Why the Last Man. He did Ex Machina. He's been doing Saga. He has done superhero stuff, but mainly Brian K. Vaughan is courted by DC and Image and various. It's like he comes up with his stories and they're always completely contained. As in, he starts it, he ends it. He always has the end in sight, which I love, because the idea of comics, unless you're Superman, you know, or those characters that just go on and on and on. Brian K. Vaughan does these very complete storylines, and he's such a good writer. He did one called Pride of Baghdad, which was just a graphic novel. It wasn't even, again, it wasn't multiple issues, but it was based on a true story of during the Iraq War, the Iraq zoo, one of the zoos was shelled and the animals escaped into like bombed out Baghdad. And so he wrote this graphic novel that's from the viewpoint of the lions that run out. So it's their thoughts and stuff as they're roaming this destroyed human city, and they run across people who are survivors and so forth. And they're like, how are we going to survive? And again, it's very contained, and it's all about the, you know, it's like they, you know, they're the most dangerous things. Man is a horrible deal and whatever. But by the end of it, again, there's sad sacrifices, dead animals, and you're just like, oh God, why are you doing this to me? It's like where the red fern grows, but with thought balloons. Good stuff. So yeah, maybe we really need a grim and gritty Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew movie.
I don't know about that, but
no, I want them all to, you know, sacrifice their lives for the betterment of the multiverse.
But as far as Captain Carrot, I'm just fond of the idea of them doing, you know, like a Pixar kind of story that's actually connected canonically with the other stuff.
I do like the Gunn. Yeah, I do like the fact that
neat.
Yeah, the fact that Gunn has said, and we'll see how well it works, but he said that he wants to combine it all, that the video games are going to come out with, that the comics, that the animated things, he wants them all to be shared, which is what Marvel's doing, because Marvel has What If, and even Sony. I mean, Sony's one of the best superhero movies of the past decade is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it is canonically tied into the MCU, because this next one in the background, you see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man walking around. It's like there is a multiverse of Spider-Man. So I'm sitting there going, I love that. And plus the animation on that was so baller, so amazing. I kept thinking, why isn't DC like going, yeah, I mean, a Green Lantern animated thing like that would be amazing too. I don't necessarily need to have live action actors walking around. If it's that good, if you're going to be that amazing with your animation, all I need. So yeah, I hope he's thinking along those lines. I'm sure he is. And being the guy who loves obscure stuff, it's not out of the realm of possibility you could get an Ambush Bug, Captain Carrot, or whatever the hell, because it's all there for the taking, and they're great stories. You could take any of the most ludicrous characters and do something interesting with it. Like they turned Kite Man into a real character in that Harley Quinn series, which I'm not a huge fan of because it's a little too, we're edgy. But still, I'm like, yeah, you could redeem anybody. I was looking forward to Batgirl because, A, I love Batgirl, but Firefly, you know, Brendan Fraser was playing Firefly. That's the villain. I'm like, wow, Firefly.
Did you see? I mean, I'm sure you did. We almost got into talking about this in a few of the recent episodes. The Swamp Thing series, the short-lived one season Swamp Thing series.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
It wasn't quite what I wanted, but I appreciated it not being cowardly. In other words, they leaned into. They didn't go full on Alan Moore route. They went more full on his original take, which was a horror comic. So I liked that because they're like, no, we're doing an R-rated Swamp Thing show. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. But they
And
did
it
go
looks
into
pretty good.
I thought it was great. It was definitely,
It was headed in the right direction, but
Yeah.
it was also shut down so quick.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, which is
that's
so
all you
annoying.
get. That's all
That's
you
what
get.
it was so exciting at the time because I thought it was of all the series that have been on TV, DC stuff, so much better than any of the CW things. And I liked it better, more in Titans. I know Doom Patrol was good, but I thought it was better than Doom Patrol just because it was.
Wow.
It wasn't trying to bite off more. Doom Patrol is like to me again. I was kind of.
So you're not going to watch the next season? You're not going to continue with the adventures of Danny the Street?
I didn't like the first season anyway. The effects were so crappy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But Swamp Thing was a little bit more contained. But I thought it looked gorgeous. I thought the cast was pretty good. And I like that they actually did. Was it Alan Moore who came up with the idea of that Alan? Is that his name? I'm trying to remember
Alec Holland.
Holland, yeah. That Alec is in Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing only has his memories.
Yeah.
That was
Alan Moore. That was actually like the very first few issues of Alan Moore's. In fact, it may have even been the very first where he's like going when he discovers Alec Holland's skeleton and he's like, oh, wait, I'm not Alec Holland. He's just his memories live on in me. I'm a completely other being. Yeah.
And they have that in the show. And I was like, that's so cool that they did that.
Yeah. But they did stuff like, the TV kind of thing. It's like, oh, Abby, great. She's a cop. She's a detective. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that, man.
Okay.
I mean, it's just like, I just like that is such a TV thing. Like, how do we explain why she gets involved? It's like, well, she is the daughter of one of his villains. So that's fine. But trying to make her and I understand they're like, well, she can't just be a weird hippie chick girlfriend who gets in jeopardy. Oh no, save me.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But I'm like, yeah, it's just now she's a cop. I get hung up on the littlest little things like that. I still enjoyed it. And I think it really was promising. Yeah. And I agree. Those shows that they were doing outside the CW that were meant only for HBO Max, were better. So yeah, Doom Patrol, Titans. I did watch like a season and a half. Somewhere in and it's not what I want, but it's still, I sit there going, oh, cool ish. I still sit there going, oh, Wonder Girl, awesome. You're cool. Yeah. Damn. Yeah. And Deathstroke and all that stuff. I'm kind of down for, but. And like I mentioned, I like Stargirl quite a bit. I mean, definitely aimed at younger viewers, but not in a stupid kiddie way. It was like, this is better than the CW ones, which are definitely aimed at a particular audience. So I give them, a thumbs up. At the same time, I don't know if they're going to exist anymore.
What do you know of anything about this Green Lantern series that may or may not have been shut down?
The only thing I know is that it was going to focus on, I believe, Guy Gardner and Jon Stewart, and they were going to make it not a police procedural, but they were going to focus on the core, which is what you should do. You've got an entire universe of cool Green Lanterns, though I understand you can't always have them like massive Green Lanterns. What threat can they fight week to week? But I think it was, since it's a series. And I do like that we're leaning into long form storytelling now, where it's like we get to spend time with these people. We get to know them really well.
Right.
A 2-hour movie. I mean, that's the reason why, like, the MCU shows like Hawkeye, and I'm just like, I loved all of his little appearances in Avengers and so forth. But how much better is this? That we finally get to know him and we get to spend a week with him or whatever. And it's like, yeah, this is great. So I think they were going to lean more into like a good cop show. Here's them at home. Here's them on the job. And of course, with crazy effects.
Yeah.
Because you can do that shit now.
It would be funny to have. have like a Barney Miller vibe. Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah. Wait, would does that mean
having
that
arguments around a coffee machine or something?
Kilowog would be fish?
Yeah.
I'm too old for this. And he would still call people poozer all the time.
Yeah.
You poozer.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and maybe Nort would be Wojciechowicz. Man, that's I worry about my brain that I'm able to go Nort, doggy Green Lantern. He could be Wojciechowicz, the Polish guy. Oh my God.
This sounds like something that a Butcher Billy should tackle. Are you familiar with his artwork? Butcher Billy. He's a brilliant pop culture artist who does mashups. Like he'll take a famous rock star and then blend them with a superhero. He's got some great stuff. But he does weird things like that.
Oh man, yeah, he did a Bowie Aladdin Sane Joker. Wow, look at that.
There's a whole series of Bowie things he did. That's how he came to my attention.
Wow, that stuff is trippy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at this. You just do what you need to do. Oh, man, he did Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman, but Captain America, and called it American Psycho. God, that's great.
Yeah, he's a bottomless well of brilliant stuff like that. He's done a lot of... There is a Bowie book I've got somewhere that he did the cover for, but I don't know where it is.
Man, anyway, I'm gonna do this. You just do what you need to do.
I've sent you down a rabbit hole.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, yeah. Looks
Mr.
great.
Jones.
Come back, Mr. Jones.
So we touched a little bit on Sandman last week.
Great.
The Netflix series. Yeah. I've
never read that comic. Is it good? That is the series that I have probably rebought the most, simply because they just keep coming out with nice versions. Like I had obviously the original, I had the original floppies, like the actual comics. Then I had the first trades that came out. I don't have those anymore. Sold them or whatever at various points because then they did the hardcovers, which were so gorgeous. And I had those. Those are the ones I had Neil Gaiman sign when I met him and at the Brentano's years ago. And those are the ones that the U.S. mail lost. Ouch. No. Except for one that I had packed in another box completely. So I have one volume still signed to me by Neil Gaiman, and the other 9. And then they
just pretend they're behind your bookshelf.
Yeah, that's right. They're somewhere behind there. He was so cool, by the way, totally great guy. And then the Absolute editions, the really tall ones that are like leather bound, I had to get those. So I've bought Sandman so many damn times.
I thought of you when I was watching it because you and I, it was around the time that Death, the High Cost of Living came out.
Yeah.
You and I were raving about that book at House of Pies, as we usually did, and just how much in love we were with Death.
Well, I mean,
incredibly realized
he
character.
Writes her. I mean, it became a trope in indie films and so forth. The manic pixie dream girl. But Neil was ahead of that curve because he wrote her as this, and that's brilliant. His take on Death is she's full of life and she's delightful. And she loves her family of fucked up endless. And she loves every person who she's taking to the other side. So she's adorable. And she's drawn as a cute goth chick. Then in Death, the High Cost of Living, you get, the artist. Why am I blanking?
Oh, yeah.
But that was extremely fetching. Like, so yeah, I had to don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. But yeah, we were guys in our 20s going, man, Death is such a cutie.
And I saw that was one of the scenes they put out before the series came out, was the scene where she, they're hanging out together and she goes to visit the violinist who has just died. And
man,
I was like, that's perfect.
Oh, Chris Bacalo.
It was perfect. Okay.
It was perfect. The thing is that people, the thing with casting announcements is, and I get it, things that I've talked to John about this. There is a segment of fandom that gets upset for the wrong reasons, as in, man, I don't remember that person being African American. I don't remember. I mean, okay, that's horrible and whatever. The only thing I think it's explainable and somewhat understandable is comics are a visual medium. And if you have grown up with a particular character, they have been essentially drawn into your brain as a certain way. So whether, if you're not coming at it from this like horrible racist or misogynist viewpoint, it's just jarring. I remember Jason Momoa being cast as Aquaman, and I'm like, this guy is built like a superhero, but Aquaman's this blonde dude. In fact, I was like, blonde hair is actually part of his origin.
Right.
I mean, literally, it's like they kicked him out of Atlantis because of the prophecy about, blonde hair means bad luck. Get rid of that guy. So I'm like, okay, all right. And then I watch it and I'm like, well, not really my Aquaman, but I like that guy. So with all the casting on Sandman, sometimes it's better that they shouldn't tell you ahead of time, because then people were just like going, that's not death. Why are we like this? Yeah. Why are we race flipping? You watch it, and if you're a true fan, I'm sorry, if you love the material, how can you deny that performance?
She was fantastic. Yeah,
she was fantastic.
She was exactly what I thought the character
and that was what Neil Gaiman said. He's like going, it's like they were looking for the character, and that's all you should ever do.
Right.
And that's the same thing with James Gunn and no, wait, was it? Yes, for Guardians 3, they were getting on him about the casting of the High Evolutionary, who's the villain of Guardians 3, cast an African American actor who's in Peacemaker, and does a great job in Peacemaker, and they're like, dude, High Evolutionary is not a black guy, and he goes, it's not about him being a black guy. He goes, this is one of the best actors I've ever worked with. Yeah. And the whole time I'm sitting there writing it, I'm like going, I know who's going to kick this thing out of the fucking park. I think we already have our High Evolutionary. And it is just like, find somebody good, and that shuts people up, or it should. So in the case of Sandman, there's plenty of little things where I'm going, oh, I don't know if that's my take, or I don't know if that's the original. And then you just let yourself go in that show. Everything worked. Like Cain and Abel, both of whom are great in it. And you're like going, they're casting 2 Indian actors and you're like going, and they just are great as Cain and Abel. I'm like, I got no problems here, dude.
Yeah.
Lucian. The lady who plays Lucian. Perfect.
Yeah.
Man. And plus, how beautiful was that show?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Because I mean, there's a thing where I did say to John a little snarkily after like the first couple episodes, it's like, it is really good. I said, but it still shows how live action will never approach the drawn image, because you have that freedom in a comic as an artist. There are breathtaking images in the comics that the show tries for, and you're like, that's good. That's good. It's close. But you had stuff like the whole giant dream hand coming down and then like scooping out an entire section of the landscape and pulling it up, and I'm like, God damn.
There was a lot of stuff that they did that I was surprised I didn't think we were going to see. I was like, are they going to, because there's some pretty edgy, like dark things, and especially in the Nocturnes series. Well, I guess the whole span of Sandman, that I was like, are they going to go this way?
Well, the whole thing is
they did.
I was behind in watching it because each episode was so filling. I kept saying literally every episode, I know it's all available right there for me to binge, but I don't want to binge it. It's like I was watching an episode a week, like a show.
Wow.
And Jerry just rushed through it, and John rushed through it, and Jerry's never read the comic. So Jerry, he sent me a text. He's like going, Jesus Christ, this one episode. He's like, I can't believe it. And I wrote back to him. I was like going, did it take place in a diner?
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah. I was like, yeah, I know. It's like when you know the comic, you're like, oh, are they going to go there? And they did.
Yeah.
They did that episode. They did the serial killer convention. I mean, one
of the first. I think I can't remember which happened first, but the scene. This was far less gory than the other things we're talking about, the diner scene. But when he goes to hell, and encounters his former lover, he's in prison there, and I was like, that was one of the things I was thinking. No way they're going to do that. That was pretty vicious, but they did. Well, and it was almost exactly like the comic thing where he turns and he sees a different person, the way he appeared to her.
Yes.
And I'm like,
fucking love it.
That's what.
No, I mean, they instead of I think the mindset in a lot of Hollywood is, especially when adapting comics, is it's not about what can we include, but what can't we include. And I think with Sandman, they literally were like going, we want all of it. And they had to carve away things they couldn't do to get the moments they really wanted. But in most of the time, I think they're like going, they start out with the negative, like, we can't have all that shit, so we'll do that. It's like, okay, we're not going to do Brainiac, but we'll do Luther. And you're like, why not do Brainiac? You know, I think it's that kind of thing where like, this is doable. No, don't start with that attitude. Put it all in there. Yeah. And it was so lovingly done. And that's a writer that I had, oh God, now I got to look up who was one of the, so I wasn't looking forward to one of the creators on Sandman, the series, because I was like, that's not really a writer that I respect too much. Now I'm looking it up. Hang on. Oh yeah. Goyer. Goyer I have a love-hate relationship with because he's dealt with a lot of superhero stuff. I mean, he did the Blade stuff, and he was a co-writer on Dark Knight, the Dark Knight trilogy. He's a little hacky, but I was impressed says the guy who's doing a podcast from his studio apartment. But the thing is that I was afraid of his Hollywood instincts. And then I watched how well they took multiple parts of the first run of Sandman, of several series, wove them together so very well, including things like how to approach the Jack Kirby Sandman thing that Gaiman did in the comics, where it's like two of his former dream beings, since he was locked up, they gave his power, or gave a sense of power, to a guy who happened to be the son of the Golden Age Hawkman and Hawkgirl, and he was Jack Kirby's Sandman, the superhero version. And this one, it's given to the little brother of Rose, and it's like, oh, that's great. Oh, that's clever. The way they did that, it's like, we're still keeping that storyline, but we're just flipping it a little bit to where it ties in seamlessly with everything else. I loved it. How are they going to dance around the DCU parts? Because Lyta Hall is a character in there. She's the wife of that person who became Jack Kirby Sandman. And she herself is the daughter of the Golden Age Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor. Oh. And she married the son of Hawkman and Hawkgirl. That's and that was Gaiman pulling them into his Sandman universe. Yeah. Well, she's named Lyta Hall in the TV show. She wasn't a former superhero because she was one called The Fury, but she looks like she could have been Wonder Woman's daughter. And when she sees her dead husband, and that's canonical in even in the Sandman comics, he looks like he could be the son of the Hawkman from Black Adam, because they have changed his race. So you have this black guy being Carter Hall. I mean, not Carter Hall. What's his name? It's something Hall. But anyway, her husband, Hector Hall. And they keep his name right. So in other words, it's not like this is a multiverse version of the story that happened in the comics. And so all that stuff just blended together for the nerds. They didn't erase anything. They just sort of changed some things around. And I just loved it. I was like, you didn't need to include that. You didn't need to do an entire episode devoted to Hob, the Immortal, but you did, and I loved every minute of it.
Oh, God, that was my favorite. Yeah. Because, oh, gosh, that was so good.
Well, everything is also informing his character. Like you mentioned, that one scene in hell. I mean, Dream is aloof, and I think the guy did a great job. He looked right, and he played it right. But the thing is, that is not a warm and cuddly hero character. And you see his flaws in the comic very well because he did that.
Yeah.
But in the show, they give you plenty of moments like that, and that makes you not like him so very much. And you have his sister constantly needling about, like, cheer the fuck up, dude. And then you have the moments with Hob where you're like, that softens him because he does have a friend, even though for a long time he refuses to admit that Hob is his friend. Yeah. Why do you keep meeting with him every 100 years? It's not just for the experiment. He's still just alive. It's like, no, you like hanging with the guy. He's your buddy. I'm like, God, I love this.
That whole story, that alone, that's the thing I loved about the Sandman then, and I love them realizing it now, is that it's like a bunch of little vignettes kind of woven together in this beautiful tapestry. And the series just captures that so well. And to that point, that bonus episode that dropped,
I couldn't believe they did that.
And that
That's
was
another
also
one of the best
beautifully done.
standalones.
Yeah. And that just shows you, like, we can do anything with this show. We're going to do all of it. and it's going to be amazing. So,
but you know what's really terrible? Critics love it, right? And I think its numbers are really high. Not Wednesday high, but high. I still can't believe I liked Wednesday. It was fun. But I can't believe that thing is like the most viewed thing on Netflix ever. I'm like,
I haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
It's cute. And I think Tim Burton did a fine job. It's not going to blow your mind. And I think the young actress they cast is perfect. And Gwendolyn Christie, who played Lucifer in Sandman, she's over in Wednesday playing a character. Great. Good to see her. Love her. Yeah. But the whole thing is me sitting there going, why? What's shameful is Neil Gaiman and basically everyone online saying, hey guys, go on Twitter and keep telling Netflix to bring us back. And I know that Sandman must have been a very expensive show.
Yeah.
Because it looks so good. But wow, you should not have to do a grassroots campaign to go, we sure would like to come back for a second season. It should be a no-brainer.
I know.
Keep Sandman going till you get to the fucking end. Until Morpheus gets killed and Daniel comes into being.
Well, I hope now that Gunn is the head of DC, maybe he can pull some strings. Or maybe he could just say it shall be. You know, I don't know how much control he has over that particular
I think he IP. I mean, it really is more Netflix. Because I know for a fact that Warner Brothers and DC would be like, oh, please do keep that going.
I think somebody asked Gaiman that. It's like if you were offered the opportunity to continue the series on HBO Max or something else, would you do it? And he says, of course. Something along those lines. So I think it'll be fine. And
actually, that's the kind of thing that you can't rule out either. It's been done. It sounds so weird to think, but
like
shows
has moved around.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that it does go back. That's happened way in the past as well. But you still sit there going, I love the idea that like an entire production company, an entire production staff, it's like, guys, we're just going to keep going, but now we're going to be CBS.
Yeah.
We can't have boobs in the show anymore. We're now on CBS or whatever, that kind of thing.
Just pass the memo around. No boobs. Yeah. Did you get the no boobs memo?
Oh, shit. Oh, now you tell me. And it's someone walking by topless. Oh. I'm so cold.
What's that?
I'm so cold. You mean I can put a sweater on now? Oh, thank God. Thank you, CBS.
The one thing that, as far as casting, it wasn't really the casting thing and this is really bound up in my experience with Doctor Who, which unfortunately I think is probably true with a lot of people who watch this show. Jenna Coleman coming in as Constantine.
Yeah.
I love Jenna Coleman, and I don't mind that they changed her gender. I don't mind that they changed the pronunciation of her name, although of course we can't hear people pronouncing the name in the comic, but it's like, come on, it's Constantine. But Jenna came in and she was essentially just Clara to me, it was basically the same character as Doctor Who.
I didn't get that.
So I don't know. It was
it
kind of pulled me out of it a little bit.
The characters aren't similar at all because Clara's, I mean, she had some badass moments, but this is clearly a badass person.
Sure.
So I didn't experience that. I mean,
I managed to get past it, but I was like, okay.
My problem was just that the change was primarily just because of rights, and that's a little sad. I mean, I don't want her not to have the work because just like you, I love that lady. She's great.
Yeah.
And I thought what it was going to be, because they announced that early also. Well, I was like, well, they're just going to have her be Lady Joanna Constantine, his ancestor, who is in Sandman, who is a woman. And I was like, oh, it'll just be.
They did do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But instead she is John. I mean, she's just, and so that's why I'm like, okay, this is multiverse. Because if you remember, like the first maybe the second issue or third of Sandman is literally him going to the Justice League. I mean, because he's looking for his ruby, and it was in the hands of Dr. Destiny, who David Thewlis played, who is a Justice League villain. And he ends up encountering the Martian Manhunter in that issue, and the Martian Manhunter sees him as the Martian god of dreams. So when he looks at him, he looks like Hronmir or whatever the name is, and he's like, "Oh, you're a Martian, huh? That's weird. I didn't think there were any of you left." And Martian Manhunter is like, "going, I'm it. And are you really the god of dreams?" Hronmir goes, "Well, yeah, that's what you guys think of me as. Where's my ruby?" So, I mean, all that stuff can't end up in a show where I knew they weren't going to have the Justice League. I knew there'd be no superhero talk. So this is multiversal. And I'm like, that's John Constantine there. And I still love John Constantine, but they sold me on Jonna. Sure, why not? Yeah, and the closest we've ever gotten to canonically is the dude from the CW shows, because other than that, we had Keanu Reeves. John loves that. John loves that movie so much, and he's excited about the upcoming sequel. They're doing a sequel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm like, great. The American John Constantine, the dark-haired American John Constantine, who sounds like Keanu Reeves. Awesome.
Yeah, that series was surprise. Was it on NBC or something like that?
Nah,
it's one of the main networks. Was it?
No,
was it CW? Okay, I thought it was originally on one of the other networks, and then they brought him in. They rescued him from that canceled show and brought him into the CW shows. But that show was surprising.
Oh, the original.
Yeah. That show was surprisingly gritty, and
and there was a scene where he goes into his like pad, and there's Dr. Fate's helmet on the shelf. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
And then I pushed my glasses up my nose, and my neighbors banged on the wall to tell me to shut up. You don't understand! It's Dr. Fate's helmet. It's the helmet of Naboo. A Lord of Order.
I remember people complaining. I saw some people complaining too about they thought that Patton Oswalt's Raven,
the Raven,
Matthew was too much. I thought it was great. I'm glad, and I was happy that they brought him in because he was from a later series, right? They brought him in earlier into the story than he was originally in the comics.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, Matthew is from Swamp Thing.
That's right, yeah.
Matthew was Abby's boyfriend, the abusive alcoholic boyfriend who dies in a car crash and then gets turned into Dream's new Raven.
And they do. He does allude to that. Say, "Oh yeah, I died in a car crash." So they could still. I mean, I really hope they do. They actually leave that.
I think casting a Patton Oswalt is both smart and not. I mean, talk about taking you out a little bit. Patton is so Patton. and God bless.
Sure.
But I did notice that other than him being sort of the voice of reason, and also he's the audience because he's like going, oh, this is crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That's a necessary character thing. And he didn't go comedy. It wasn't like, oh, you're going to be like the bird in Lion King. It's like, it was like, you're now a comedic side character. He got some good funny lines in, but he's literally sitting there going like, so what are you going to do about this whole Dr. Destiny or, John D thing? He's like, well, we'll figure it out. I was like, all those people had to die. Yeah, it was their time. Jeez. Yeah. He's just very earnest. And I thought, that's great.
Like the scene in Hell where he's down there and I forget the character's name who he had imprisoned down there. In the original comic, Matthew's not there with him.
Right. That's right.
We get his reaction like, dude, seriously?
Yeah. And that is a necessary thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you could release her now. And he's like, I'm not over it yet. And you're like, God damn it.
But that kind of hints towards, it gives the audience a little bit more wiggle room, because you kind of hints to the fact that, okay, there is a character arc here for Dream, that he's, he has some really, really serious issues, but he's going to work through them. And Matthew kind of offers that levity, like, I think maybe that wasn't the right decision. Maybe.
Well, yes. And what I love is he really has this support group behind him, which is true in the comics too. When you watch it in the series, it becomes more apparent. Lucian is trying very hard to keep everything together and believes in Morpheus, even when Morpheus is doing stupid things. You got Merv Pumpkinhead. I mean, I'm like, they put Merv Pumpkinhead in there.
Mark Hamill. Yeah.
Jesus. And it's all the creatures of the dreaming basically saying like, we just need you back, man. We need you to focus on what you used to do. Get past all your, revenge stuff. Get your stuff back. Calm down and put the dreaming back in order. And I love that shit.
Again, Stephen Fry as Fiddler's Green.
Fiddler's Green. And I mean, perfect casting. What do you get? What? The scene of him and Rose on their road trip driving down to Florida. I'm like, I just want more of all of this. No, I'm telling you, I thought as far as adaptations go, and again, you can see things that were changed, but this is just like I say to John, MCU, when they change things, it's always smart. That was true in Wakanda Forever. You're like, every change you made sense for the MCU, but also works. And it's not arbitrary. Every change to the source material that Sandman did worked and also had Gaiman's blessing, where he's like, oh, that's a clever... I mean, he was in on all of this. He's like going, oh, I never would have thought of that. That's great the way you guys did that. Perfect. And you're like going, yeah. I mean, it's not the Bible. So how close do you need to be to it? Well, any change you make can't seem arbitrary. And a lot of that CW stuff and a lot of the DC stuff does feel that way because they're changes for other reasons than making it better. There's changes for convenience, money. We need a big name. That person's totally wrong for it. Doesn't matter. Put them in because they're a big name, blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of stuff that they didn't do with Sandman. So I was, as a fan of the comic, fan of Neil Gaiman, completely all in on Sandman. Yeah. And what a delight, because of after so many years of them trying to develop it and so many things you heard that were nightmare stories. And he's like, he's very frank in interviews. He's like he goes, it's not like they ever stopped. Like every few months I'd get another draft of a screenplay that Warner Brothers would send me. And it was something like, oh, what if Morpheus is now like a detective? And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
There was a story that he revealed. I don't know if this was a new revelation. I think he told the story on Twitter. It was the same dude that was trying to make Superman Lives. And put the whole thing with them wanting the mechanical spider. Superman Lives, which eventually wound up in Wild West. I forget that producer's name.
John Peters.
Yeah, at some point he was connected with an effort with Sandman, and somehow Neil managed to wrestle it away from him somehow by putting his foot down. But
Thank God. Thank God.
but it was
John
just,
Peters
it was the same
Sandman.
thing. Like I think the mechanical spider came up again.
Oh, sure, of course. Now here's
But
where
thank God that didn't happen.
please say yes, but if you haven't, I understand. A friend of mine, a different John, who sadly is no longer with us, Jon Schnepp. So you did see his documentary?
I bought it. Yeah,
Okay, good.
I think you told me about it when it was coming out.
Good.
And I bought the digital download version of it when it first came out. Loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. And the thing that I told him when I finally got, because I knew he was working on it for a long time, but I just didn't know what shape it would take. And then I watched it and I was like, the one thing that I really came away with from that is we kind of dodged a bullet, because Jon Peters is like you say, his interviews with Jon Peters were just nuts. It's everything you've ever heard about the guy. And you're like going, he had no take. He thinks he knows this character and he doesn't. He has the worst take imaginable. But at the end of it, I said the biggest thing I took away from it is, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have liked Tim Burton's Superman movie, but your documentary at least convinced me that would have been very interesting.
Yes.
I was like, that would have been a very interesting misfire. And I kind of wish it had happened, just because I'm like looking at those Brainiac ship designs and all this stuff. And you see Nicolas Cage and the costume fitting and all that stuff. I'm like going, this would have been the weirdest.
Yeah,
man. Anyway, so R.I.P. John, but that was great. And the idea of Jon Peters, just assuming because he had a huge hit with Batman, that's what we're going to do with all these DC properties.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that Kevin Smith thing where he's, done that story a million times, but the whole thing like going, why I know you're the right man for this job. He's talking, Peters is talking to, and he's going, because you and I, we're from the streets. And you just have Kevin Smith going like, I'm a suburban kid from Jersey, man. I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, also from the streets. And he goes, yeah, that's why you get Superman. I'm like, what?
Yeah. The whole thing is such a weird story. You got Kevin Smith and Tim Burton in the same tale, this movie that never got, and I've read Nick Cage.
I have read Kevin Smith's drafts, or at least one of them. And I love that guy, and I know he loves the material and knows it well, but it would have been a disaster.
Really, yeah.
It's so talky in a Kevin Smith way. There's a scene, it's got, but I think this was Jon Peters saying like, I want a scene with Superman on the couch talking to a psychiatrist. Right. He's like, oh God, okay. Mechanical spider, polar bears, scene with a psychiatrist. Perfect. But he does have it open with Superman taking down Deathstroke, by the way. That was a pretty cool opening. But anyway,
yeah, one of my favorite things about, there's so many great things in that documentary, but just watching the interviews with Tim Burton going like, they're talking about Peters, like, that was crazy.
Yeah, I know. I was so, again, that's amazing to me, but I was so jealous. And I told them to their face, John and Holly, they were a couple up until John's passing. But Holly's a good friend of mine. I was like going, you guys got to go to Tim Burton's house in London or whatever. And it looks like a Tim Burton house, like in that interview, this gothic thing. And he's got weird display cases and stuff. And he's just sunk in like a velvet chair and he's got his shades on. I'm like, that's exactly what I want from Tim Burton. Yeah. Sitting in the shadows, wearing sunglasses in his dark house and being a nerd, talking about how fucked up his movie would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. But speaking of which, Holly, she has seen the show. She has given her blessing to Prodigious SAPS.
Thank you, Holly. We love you.
And she said something really nice about John. They said John would have loved that you were doing this, and he would have wanted to chime in as a chimer.
Well, what we're doing is a very low key, friend chatty version of what he used to do on Collider. Did you ever watch that?
Oh yeah. I was a huge fan of his. The whole Collider team I loved. Most of them anyway. The main heads, Campia, Christian Harloff, and Jon Schnepp were the three big hearts in that show. Yeah, and Schnepp was fantastic.
Well, I mean, that's exactly who he was. As in, the thing is, even though he worked in the entertainment industry, I always respected the fact that Jon just spoke his mind. Like, even me, if I was just kind of shit talking David Goyer. If I met him, I would, of course, just be, oh, and very nice to meet you, because it's the instinct. It's like, that person is successful, so I'm going to be. That guy, Jon, had no fear of those people. And he would tell them to their face, like, dude, that Green Lantern, if he walked up to, Ryan Reynolds, it'd be just like, but he knows Ryan Reynolds would say, but that Green Lantern movie is total shit, man. And his opinions, he would just state, and he would back them up. But the thing is, just like, he wasn't coming from it from a troll perspective, because the things he loved, that guy would gush for hours. In other words, just like us, that kind of a fan where it runs deep and the enthusiasm, he's not worried about people judging you're a nerd, because he was embracing that. And the whole thing about being sweaties, which was, he coined that, it's like, and he's just like going, no, that's what we are. And it, just like I said, this stuff mattered to Jon. Yeah. And that's my favorite conversations with him, were stuff that would have driven anybody else insane. And even Holly occasionally would kind of fade after a while, because he would just be sitting there like going, no, man, no, that is an easy out. Phantom Zone is an easy out, or whatever it would be. And it would just be like, after 2 hours of it, it's like, man, I can't do that anymore. I just can't. So Jon would have been on here in a second. We could have had him as a guest anytime, because the man's love was pure, and I just, gets me right there. He should be with us still.
Because there was so much time between his documentary coming out and when he was on Collider. There was this happy moment when I realized, oh, that's Jon. That's the guy who made the documentary. It was like, this is so cool.
Yeah. And, by the way, I disagreed with him plenty. We weren't always lockstep on things.
Yeah.
What we should do for this episode of our show, in the links underneath it, make sure you put a link to his documentary, like where they can buy it. Because if you guys haven't seen, oh my God, it's a long title.
The Death of Superman Lives, right?
Yes. Oh boy, that's a bad look. It's just a long title. It's like The Death of Superman Lives something. Yeah. I'm looking it up. Don't worry. But it is, for one thing, a great documentary about something that was known, and it's called The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. There you go. That's the full title.
Okay.
But it's a documentary about something that everyone had heard of but didn't have all the info. Things that didn't happen, I love that stuff. I also liked that documentary Doomed about the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, because that's a real heartbreaker.
I need to see that.
I've seen, the documentary is fun. But I've also, of course, seen the Roger, because it's been bootlegged for a million years. That Roger Corman Fantastic Four. That is something else, man. And that's probably what they're doing. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe's multiverse will probably have those actors show back up. Like, oh my God, we're actually officially canon. Hi, everybody. Anyway.
Geez. I need to get. I'm meeting my brother and my mom for a belated Christmas get together.
Oh wow! You guys didn't do a Christmas get together?
Well, my brother lives in my brother lives in Austin now with his fiance.
Hey, congrats! Yeah. I saw those pictures of you guys at the ceremony honoring your dad. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
And I hope that, and I saw you at the podium giving a little talk, and I hope you put in some of my jokes that I was giving you. Really? The one about the nun, that one kills every time. The one about the penguin with the prolapse anus, that one always, oh my God. It's a joke.
Yeah, damn it. It's a missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Well, tell your brother, who I don't think I've ever met.
I don't think you have, yeah.
Tell him I said hi. Tell your mom I said hi. We've met.
Yep.
I've eaten food out of her fridge before, and
yes,
I think I owe her some.
One time, yeah.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah.
But have a wonderful time, and let's do this again next week. What do you think?
Sounds good, man.
All right. Until then, Godspeed, John Glenn.
What?
It's, right stuff.
It's the right stuff. Okay, yeah. Why not?
I say it often. Godspeed, John Glenn, just so I can get the weird looks from people going. That's what I love. All right, see you, man.